Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. I'm Amma Mama, and I wanted to figure out my TBR for July. I did not finish everything that I had on my TBR for June, unfortunately, which I kind of thought that might be the case just based on the books that I had picked and how my month was going to be scheduling wise. So I'm not overly surprised about that. Technically I've still got 4 books, but one of them it's the Kipling book. One of them I have like 2 stories left or 3 stories left in the Kipling book, and then that one's done. And then I'm still working on the complete short stories of Mark Twain. I had a plan for how I thought I might finish that one this month, which didn't happen. Some of the stories were longer, some of them were shorter, and so how I had thought if I broke the book up for a certain number of chapters, stories each day, I thought maybe I'd get through them, but just time-wise and everything, that didn't work out. So I'm still working on that. And then I also still have Out to Canaan by Jan Caron. So this one is just gonna automatically go to my July TBR, which is fine, and I'm not gonna really speak to this one too much, but this is part of the Mitford series. So again, just kind of following Father Tim, his wife, and whatever happens in this book. It's got the drama in this one is that the Sweet Puff Bakery may be closing, and so that's one of the things. So again, these ones are very just kind of wholesome, lighthearted reads. So I think it'll be a good one for me to read in July. And then the other main one that I didn't get through is Fathom Folk by Eliza Chan. And I ended up getting the Audible of this one just today, actually, and I started listening to it, but it's really good. And so I think I'm going to go back and read it just because I want to really make sure I'm following and understanding what's going on. But I do have the Audible, so if I find that I'm really busy, because my son does have a summer camp this week, then I can at least listen to it while I'm driving and stuff. So those 2 are going to be automatically on my TBR. Before I pull out my jar to pick what else I'm going to be reading, I will say that I have bought over the last month 3 more books that I had not planned on buying, but unfortunately, fortunately for me, I do leave the house, but it's not too often that I am intentional about getting out of the house on my own to just be away from, my son and all of that, and just getting a break. And I've been trying to be better about that, but unfortunately, my happy place is going to a bookstore. And so I try to go and just browse and enjoy myself, but inevitably I come out with books. So I have 3 books that I ended up getting recently, and I am purposely not including these 3 in my TBR jar because I really want to read what I have on my shelf right now, keeping in mind that if I have a month where I've finished my TBR, I usually will just pick something I want to read, and so that's when I'll pull maybe from the newer books that were kind of impulse purchases. But I picked up The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden. I loved the first 2 of these books. I'm not a huge mystery reader per se, and so I've heard kind of mixed reviews on these, but I've really enjoyed these books a lot. So I was really excited that this one was coming out, and so when I saw that they had it at the bookstore that I was at, I went ahead and bought it. So again, I may read this just randomly at some point, but if not, at least I have it. But I'm looking forward to reading that one. This next one wasn't anything I heard of, but because I loved Assistant to the Villains so much, I had seen this one, and when I read the back, it kind of had those same vibes from what I could see. But I picked up How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying by Django Wexler. And so this book, it just says, and I'm not going to read the whole thing right now, but basically a young woman who is tired of defending humanity from the Dark Lord decides that maybe the Dark Lord is onto something after all. So I think she is trying to become the Dark Lord. And it's another one of those like fantasy, comedy, horror kind of books. So I'm thinking I'll really like this as long as like the humor is actually there. I didn't really even thumb through it. I just loved the title, and when I read the back, I was like, ooh, that sounds like something I'll like. And then the last one should probably not be any surprise, but I picked up Stephen King's You Like It Darker, and this is his newest book that just came out. It is a collection of short stories, many of them, or maybe all of them, I don't remember what he had said when I was listening to the podcast, but that have not been published anywhere. So I'm really excited about this. There's one in here in particular that he talked about on the podcast that had to do with insomnia that sounded really intriguing. So I'm looking forward to this book. But again, usually when it comes to Stephen King, if I don't already own it and I know for sure I don't have it and I see it, I tend to buy it, even if I know I'm not going to read it for a while. So that is what I picked up more recently. So now I want to pick what I am going to read in July. And like I said, I've got 2 that I haven't finished, plus the Mark Twain stories. And that one, because there's so many stories in that book, and depending on the month, like that one may be another one like I did with Edgar Allan Poe's book, where I just kind of read it at whatever pace I felt like, and it'll be done when it's done. And that's fine, because like when I read the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe, I think that one I spent almost 6 months reading, which I was perfectly fine with, and it was good, but I just wasn't in a rush to try to push through it just so I could say I finished it in a month. Anyway, so that being said, I don't know how many books I want to put on my July TBR. I don't have a ton of stuff going on in July, but I do have some things coming up. So I don't know. For some reason, I thought that during the summer I would be less busy and I would have more time to read and that I could have like a fuller TBR, but June ended up being so busy that that was not the case. So I don't know what July is going to actually bring. So I've got 2 to start with, and so let's see, what else I end up with. So the first book is going to be The Green Mile by Stephen King. And this one, I've seen the movie, but I've never actually read the book for The Green Mile. And so this one says on the back that when it first appeared, it was 1 volume per month. And so this book contains all of the volumes of it. So welcome to Cold Mountain Penitentiary, home to the depression-worn men of E Block. Convicted killers all, each awaits his turn to walk the Green Mile, keeping a date with Old Sparky, Cold Mountain's electric chair. Prison guard Paul Edgecombe has seen his share of oddities in his years working the mile, but he's never seen anyone like John Kofi, a man with the body of a giant and the mind of a child. Condemned for a crime terrifying in its violence and shocking in its depravity, in this place of ultimate retribution, Edgecombe is about to discover the terrible, wondrous truth about Kofi, a truth that will challenge his most cherished beliefs and yours. So I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long time since I saw the movie, but I remember it made me cry, and so I'm definitely interested in reading the book and seeing what I think of it. I may, after I read this, go back and watch the movie again just to see what was different in the movie versus the book. But so this should be a good read, I hope. Maybe a little heavy, but it should be good. Okay, so that's that one. Okay, now we have another Stephen King book, If It Bleeds. And this one, the cover, I love the cover on this. So it says, in January of 2021, a small padded envelope addressed to Detective Ralph Anderson is delivered to the Conrads, the Andersons' next door neighbors. The Anderson family is on an extended vacation in the Bahamas. Printed on this envelope in large letters is, "Do not forward, hold for arrival." When Ralph opens the package, he finds a flash drive titled, "If It Bleeds," presumably, okay, that word doesn't want to come out, presumably referring to the old news trope which proclaims, "If it bleeds, it leads." The drive holds a kind of report or a spoken word diary from Holly Gibney, with whom the detective shared a case that began in Oklahoma and ended in a Texas cave. It was a case that changed Ralph Anderson's perception of reality forever. The final words of Holly's audio report are from an entry dated December 19th, 2020. She sounds out of breath. "I've done the best I can, Ralph, but it may not be enough. In spite of all my planning, there's a chance I won't come out of this alive. If I do die and you choose to continue what I've started, please be careful. You have a wife and son." Okay, so Holly Gibney has been a character in several Stephen King novels. So in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, she's one of the main people. I've only read Mr. Mercedes. I haven't read the other two novels in that trilogy. This book, If It Bleeds, is actually the second in the trilogy so it's The Outsider, and then If It Bleeds, and then Holly is the last one. And I think I actually have a copy of Holly also. So it's good that I drew this first. And if I don't, I'll probably pick that up. So I did read Outsider not too long ago. And so I think this should be really good. I do remember liking her character a lot, and it's been a while since I read Mr. Mercedes, but that was also a really good book. I didn't really realize it was part of a trilogy until I had heard the podcast where Stephen King was talking about it a little bit, and that's when I was like, oh, I didn't realize there were more books in the Mr. Mercedes in that set. Like, I thought it was just Mr. Mercedes. So I'll probably have to go back and get the rest of those so I can continue reading them and see what happens next. But in the meantime, I've got If It Bleeds. And again, I didn't know that The Outsider was part of a trilogy and then the If It Bleeds. I just had recognized the name Holly Gibney and the little blurb there about the cave. So I had to go Google it really quick to see. And that's when I was like, oh, I did not know all that. So it looks like I'll have more books that I need to get and read. But so If It Bleeds. So we've got a couple Stephen King, not both horror, but a couple of Stephen King, because I have a lot of Stephen King still on my shelf. So the next book is Bag of Bones, which is also Stephen King. This one is a pretty big book also. This one, let's see, it says, Stephen King's most gripping and unforgettable novel, Bag of Bones, is a story of grief and a lost love's enduring bonds, of a new love haunted by the secrets of the past, of an innocent child caught in a terrible crossfire. Set in the Maine territory King has made mythic, Bag of Bone recounts the plight of 40-year-old best-selling novelist Mike Nolan, who is unable to stop grieving even 4 years after the sudden death of his wife Jo, and who can no longer bear to face the blank screen of his word processor. Now his nights are plagued by vivid nightmares of the house by the lake. Despite these dreams, or perhaps because of them, Mike finally returns to Sarah Laughs, the Nonans' isolated summer home. He finds his beloved Yankee town familiar on the surface, but much changed underneath. Held in the grip of a powerful millionaire, Max DeVore, who twists the very fabric of the community to his purpose, to take his 3-year-old granddaughter away from her young widowed mother. As Mike is drawn into their struggle, he falls in love with both of them. He is also drawn into the mystery of Sarah Laughs, now the site of ghostly visitations, ever-escalating nightmares, and the sudden recovery of his writing ability. What are the forces that have been unleashed here, and what do they want of Mike Nolan? As vivid and enthralling as King's most enduring works, Bag of Bones resonates with what Amy Tan calls the witty and obsessive voice of King's powerful imagination. It's no secret that King is our most mesmerizing storyteller. In Bag of Bones, described by Gloria Naylor as a love story about the dark places within us all, he proves to be one of our most moving. There's a chance I've already read this book. It sounds very familiar, but I don't know if it's just because of the flap, but this book came out in 1998, and obviously that was a very long time ago, and so I don't remember or know how long ago I actually picked up this book. And like I said, it seems very familiar, so I'm kind of thinking I might have read this one. So if I start reading it and remember enough of it to where I'm like, yeah, I definitely read Bag of Bones already, I will probably skip this one unless I'm like super into the story again. And not because I don't want to reread, not because I don't want to reread a book, but just because I still have so many books that I haven't read that I'm really trying not to just reread things if I know or if I realize I have read them already. So I think I'm going to pick one more book for July, and then I'm going to stop there, because if I end up having time, I'll read more, but I think I've got a good, number. Sorry, some of these slips of paper are so tiny. And plus I've got a lot of Stephen King right now. All right, so the last book that I have that I'm going to look at right now is Alfred Hitchcock Stories to Stay Awake by. And it says 35 startling, frightening, suspenseful, chilling exercises in the art of murder and suspense. So this book, I know I've read before, but it was back when I was in high school, I think. Yeah, this came out in 1971. So I read it in high school, but I don't think I ever read the whole thing. Like, I think I read like some of the stories, but not all of them. So this is going to go up there with my list of, or not with my list of, but kind of like my short story books that I've been doing with Mark Twain and stuff. I will see how far I get, but depending on how the rest of my reading is going, this may be one that also carries over for a while. I have quite a few left that are just collections of short stories, and so because of that, those are a little tricky, because short stories for me, I usually read them slower because it takes me a little longer. I don't know, I can't just pick it up and read a bunch of short stories at once. I find that like I read one and then I want to read or do something else. So that is that. I did, to be honest, I drew a book from here that was from my Kindle, and this is a really lame reason, but I put it back into my jar because I had a lot of Kindle books this month, and I don't have my tablet or anything readily available right now to even look up the book to see what it is or show anything or talk about it at all. And so I put it back in the jar because I can. So I'll save that one for a different month. But plus I had a lot of books that were, not a lot, but I had a couple books this month that were like on my Kindle, and I kind of don't want too many more. So, all right, so that leaves 3, 4, 5, so six books for my July TBR, not including Kipling that I am finishing, but I should be done with that in the next day or two. And then the complete short stories of Mark Twain. So that gives me a good stack, and except for actually the 2 that were left over from July or from June, everything that I picked, with the exception of maybe the Green Mile also, because that one's not really horror per se, but the rest of these I think are somewhere in that genre. So that kind of, I don't know. we'll see how those go for the month. So that is it for this video. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you all have a great week, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.